a Black Mirror a lot of times. So I've put myself across the line, the point of no return, saying, hey, I know they're going to say whatever
Kanye
they want
West.
about me. And when I bring up the truth, they're going to say, you didn't get enough sleep. It's because of your health. They're going to call me names for my truth. But these experiences that I'm telling you about are factually things that I've went through and things that I refuse to keep going through, and things that I'm not going to let my children go through, and things that I'm not going to let my peers go through. No pun intended.
Well, look, we are most certainly uncensored on this show, and I want to give you the time and the platform to really explain yourself, because I think that sometimes sound bites about people, perhaps taken out of context sometimes, can create a very distorted view of what a person really thinks.
Ironically, he says this when he's talking to Andrew Tate, right? Hilarious that he would say this with Kanye, but not with Andrew, right? He, instead of agreeing with Andrew and commiserating with him like he's doing with Kanye here, he tried to pillory him. Interesting.
What do you think, looking back over the last few weeks in particular, what do you think have been the biggest misconceptions about you?
Well, I think there's a left agenda to silence anyone that goes against the agenda.
Yep.
Let's go back to Trump running for office back in 2015. Everyone that was around me in my industry, in the entertainment industry, told me that my life would be over. I would be on the wrong side of history. I've even had threats to my life for wearing the Trump hat. And it even ended up in, destroying my family, and also making it where I have to raise my children differently, because I actually am a person that's classified as Black. I classify myself as Jew, but a person that's classified that had been given that title in America as Black, in America, that I'm supposed to stay in a block of a vote. You never heard the term white vote. So why is there a term Black vote? How is that okay? It sounds just as racist as a Black drinking fountain. And
agreed. True.
And my dad, called me. He said, the thing that the left fear about Ye, or makes me the most dangerous, is I'm rich.
Indeed.
And that's the point. Tupac told me back in the days, you had to get your money right, and then you go to war. So I'm going to war. I don't have endless resources. I only have maybe honestly only maybe $120 million in my account. But what I'm not going to let happen is I'm not going to let my kids take over Yeezy someday and have a boardroom telling them what to do and talking behind their back. I'm not going to let that happen to my children. So I have to fight right now. And the other powerful icons in Black music, when they were at the top of the game, they didn't fight at that point. They were too afraid of losing whatever they had. So by the time they wanted to make a difference, by the time Bill Cosby wanted to buy NBC, he didn't have the Cosby Show at that time to be able to stand up when they wanted to literally throw him in jail, where they actually did throw him in jail. So people have to understand just the bravery. There's so many people everywhere. I know everyone can relate to being afraid to say what you're going to feel because you feel like you're going to,
Yes, indeed. That's something we can all resonate with. And here's the thing. I mean, this is what we're experiencing in 2022. We're experiencing that. It's like an episode of Black Mirror, right? You want to say the truth about, intersexual dynamics, how men and women work. And if you reveal your identity, well, you get fired, you get pilloried, you get called, a person that dislikes women. You can't get laid, you're an I cell, you're an A word, you're an M word, etc. That is not free speech. That is not freedom. That is you should be in the leftist box, and if you're not in the leftist box, we're gonna cancel you, right? And So it's happened with Kanye, so it's happened with Andrew Tate, so it's happened with Sneeko, and again, like, it's the expression. First they came for those people, then they came for those people, I said nothing. Then they came for those people, I said nothing. Then they came for those people, and finally they came for me. That's exactly what happened in a certain country which I will not name, at a certain time which I'll not name, but I think the people listening catch my meaning. Hello and welcome to the Helios blog. My name is Helios, here for another reaction video. If you're new to the channel, liking the content, please hit the sub, hit all for notifications. And if you'd like to support me further, I do have a YouTube, of course I have a YouTube channel. I have a Patreon with exclusive content. It's patreon.com/theheliosblog. Just go there and subscribe to any tier. Any level of support is appreciated. All right, here we go.
You're going to lose something. So whether you agree with me or not, I believe people are going to feel the fact that someone is brave enough to say something. Every day I do
Indeed.
5 things that people have been historically killed for. Every day. And it's just, I want to prove, first of all, I am Jew also. The 12 lost tribes of Hebrew. Do the math. Do your research on it. We have got our culture ripped from us and then told we were just simply void of color, which is another definition for black. But if we knew we were a culture and knew we were a people, the way the Jewish people know, then we wouldn't abort ourselves. We wouldn't shoot each other dead in the streets and then rap about it. We wouldn't brag about, having sex with each other's wives. We would keep our families together and we would do business together. The most dangerous place for a black person in America is actually in our mother's stomachs, because 50% of black deaths a year in America is abortion currently. I mean, I can keep going, but I want to make it, hey, boom, ask me questions, let's go.
I don't want to jump in too much because
That's a terrifying thought to think about. I mean, we know about the black community, right? And how it's suffering under basically leftist brainwashing, right? These girls have been tricked into believing, not all of them obviously, but a lot have been tricked into believing they're strong and independent. They don't need no man, they don't need to look good. They don't need to be feminine or anything like that. And what ends up happening? What ends up happening is the destruction of their own culture, their own people, right? And I mean, if you believe that it can't happen to you because you're not part of that community, well, I'm afraid to tell you that unfortunately it can. It'll just take a little bit longer to get to you, right? Maybe not to you as an individual, but to your children it could get to your children's children. It's a terrifying thought. Again, this is why it's very important to, I mean, I don't know if the pendulum's ever going to turn, but the issue is that, like, it's just natural selection, right? If one group is actively destroying themselves and another group isn't, like, and that group reproduces, like, which group is going to win? Which group is going to reproduce and pass on to the next generation? Obviously not the one with destructive thoughts. So you need to be on the right side of history, right? You need to understand the truth, and you need to be able to make decisions that will actually allow you to have, a family and children and an actual happy future, as opposed to being destroyed by the current agenda, which is, marry some girl that made incredibly poor decisions when she's past her prime, have 1 or 2 kids, she divorces you out of boredom, you lose those children, you lose your house, you lose your assets, and the government taxes all of it. Like, that's the current arrangement. That's like, if you live according to what the current narrative wants you to do, that's what's going to happen. So, like, it's up to you to make the correct decisions, right? And this is why it's so important to understand the truth of the world, right? And to not just believe blindly what people tell you. This is why critical thinking in 2022 is the most important thing, right? And yet, people are being, they're watching TikTok and reducing their attention span to 30 seconds to 1 minute. You think people are capable of critical thought when they have their attention span that low? No, that's on purpose. Whatever social engineers created TikTok were geniuses, because it is so good at destroying humanity.
But here's what I honestly think. I think you have an extraordinary mind.
YouTube Shorts too,
You
and
have
Instagram
a
Reels.
number of extraordinary talents. You're a musical genius. You're a fascinating public figure. What has been interesting to me is to watch the furore which has erupted in the last few weeks over a series of statements that you've made, which have caused, as you know, a lot of offence. And I guess before I get into them, I'm just curious as to whether you think there is a line for free speech. I completely agree with you that there is a war against free speech, that people are treading on eggshells all the time.
Literally.
Terrified of expressing honestly held opinions in case they get cancelled. I think we're living in a
Indeed.
really insidious era where
Agreed.
liberals are behaving like fascists. So on that,
Like, it's amazing to me that Piers could have this belief set and simultaneously believe what he believes about women. Do you understand how insidious that is, guys? Do you understand how he says he's not left or right, but his entire conception of how women should be treated is left? Do you see that? Do you see how insidious that is? How destructive that is? We've seen the Andrew Tate, Piers Morgan. So he's saying he believes this, and yet, like, in the interview with Andrew Tate, he doesn't dare speak out against women. You see? And I mean, it's not about being against women, really. It's about being against the modern narrative of what women are supposed to be according to 2022 Western culture, which, by the way, doesn't apply to anywhere else in the world, right? So this is why you get the passport men, right? The men that, like, leave the country in order to go to a different country where the women are less, like, not all women, of course, but where the women are less, leftist, terrible, aggressive, belligerent, argumentative, and where the laws aren't favoring those very women to destroy you. Like, it seems logical to me.
you have absolutely my agreement. But my question for you is, do you believe there are limits to free speech? And if they are, what are they?
There are no limits to free speech. It's all context, right? Tarantino can write a movie about slavery where actually him and Jamie, they got the idea from me, because the idea for Django, I pitched to Jamie Foxx and Quentin Tarantino as the video for Gold Digger. And then Tarantino turned it into a film. But in that film, he puts a context, he creates a context where Leonardo DiCaprio is allowed to use the word multiple times within that context. So,
right. So again, as I've said, free speech, like in 2022, what they're trying to do is they're trying to close the box. They're trying to make the box smaller. And if people allow the box to become smaller, then the society is going to trend towards USSR. Believe me, that's what happened not that long ago. People were literally like, I mean, I'm not going to go into too many details, but let's just say that that sort of thinking is not very good for society. Again, I'm going to quote Voltaire. I disagree with what you're saying, but I'll die before I'll die to let you say it, right? Because the point is, if we can't have disagreement, if we can't have free thought and free speech, because again, what you're allowed to say affects how you think. So if you censor if you censor speech, you censor thought. And if you censor thought, you throw your society in the garbage, right? It's just sad to me, frankly.
So Hollywood's job is to frame things, and they allow what context, what content is accepted and what's not. We have our thoughts. Everyone has thoughts and ideas, and then people try to manipulate your thoughts and ideas.
Agreed.
in order for humanity to move forward, we have to be free to think and then to actualize. I like the word actualize better than execute. If you think about execute's a negative word, actualize would be more positive, except for the fact that it has the word act in it, and everyone's an actor, especially in Hollywood. I'm like top 5 writers in human history, so I really get into the power of words, and I feel very akin to Capote, Freud, Nikola Tesla, Da Vinci, Matisse, more Matisse than Picasso, more African Cubism than Matisse. So I just do that. I throw out that kind of for the liberals. And that's the funny thing. It's like liberals.
Let me hold you up on that.
Me.
On Matisse, when you say you're more Matisse than Picasso, as somebody who's a fan of Matisse and Picasso, actually, I spent a lot of time in Saint-Tropez where they all used to paint together. Why do you say Matisse? What is it about Matisse that you feel an affinity with?
I feel like Drake is more Picasso and Ye is more Matisse. When we talked about, when me and Drake went to do the show last year for prison reform and to bring awareness to the incarceration of Larry Hoover, I sent him articles about the relationship of Matisse and Picasso and the need for these people. You need to have that, I need to go into the...
Personally, I find Picasso's art to be very ugly and frankly disturbing. But I would not cancel Picasso. You see? I would allow him to make the art and just criticize it. Like, that's fine. Like, just let the people say their thoughts and criticize them. But in that criticism, there's no you'll go to jail for your thoughts. You'll lose your job for your thoughts. No. That what I say offends you doesn't mean that I deserve to lose everything that I own. Like, in that case, we're living in a feels before reals reality, right? Effectively, it's like Socrates. Stop corrupting the youth. Drink your poison, Socrates. Or or Copernicus, right? It's like the Earth orbits around the sun. Galileo, right? And people are like, you're an infidel. How dare you say that the Earth orbits around the sun? No, the sun orbits around the Earth, and you're going to say that, or else it goes against religion. Go to jail, buddy. Like, that's the reality we live in. We're back, guys. We're back in the Dark Ages. I hope you realize that. Right now, 2022 is the Dark Ages. History will remember. History will remember us as living in the new Dark Ages. Because that is the truth of our reality. If you speak out against the modern religion, which is womanism, which is why I even have to call it womanism, then you're pilloried. You lose your job. If you don't have a mask, well, you can't say anything, right? That is such a ridiculous concept to me. It blows my mind that such a thing is allowed, right? That one specific way of thinking is allowed, but not another. Like, what? Like, excuse me? People are... So you say that everyone's different. Everyone's a special snowflake. But all of these special snowflakes can only think in your direction. Like, what? You're contradicting your own ideology with what you're saying. It's just utterly ridiculous, guys.
Bar and go to Starbucks. That's a form of a modern day bar, right? And just hear Drake's song playing back to back. And Drake needs to go into that same Starbucks just in a different city and see people wearing Yeezys. And it puts us both back into the studio. And, God sets up these almost similar characters, these doppelgangers, it makes me really realize God has a sense of humor. Like, why is John Galliano and Mark Jacobs the exact same human being, just placed in a different place? Or why does God have it where Bernard Arnault cannot purchase Gucci, not even through the Chinese market? God does this to remind us that we are not God. Because when you take people like Elon Musk and Bernard Arnault and Trump or Jack Ma, Putin, you take these people in their own space, in their own environments, you know, we can start to feel like gods on earth, but we are nothing in comparison to God. And we are here actually to
Agreed.
love one another and to collaborate and to make the world a better place. There's, 1% of the world are placed in power, and 99% of the world are the audience. So that 1% of the world, this idea of a United Nations, this is the world that needs to come together. This is the world that, here's the obvious go-to. Biden doesn't listen to Elon Musk. The president of the United States does not have meetings with Elon Musk. That is, hey, here, come get me. That's retarded.
So here's the thing. I actually disagree with the idea of a new world order. The idea that all of the top 1% of humanity should ally with each other. And here's why. Because what that allows is for there to be a global culture. Because if all of the rulers of the world are all allied and they all come together and they all decide what direction the world goes in, well then, all of the world's cultures will converge, and what that allows for is greater control over people, which means that could allow for a total censorship of free speech. So no, I disagree. I think that those top 1% should fight and should maybe form small pockets of alliances, but should never be totally allied. For that reason, we need to maintain disparate, separate cultures on this earth because of natural selection and evolution. So depending on how the world goes, certain thoughts maybe are like deleterious to the species and shouldn't be allowed to spread to the entire population. That's what I believe. So, for example, womanism is incredibly destructive to the human race, and there are places on Earth where womanism is unheard of, right? And where people still live relatively good lives under actual patriarchy. If we had a new world order where every single, top 1% person was allied with each other, and we had effectively a new world order, it would be possible to stamp that out, right, and utterly control people. And I actually am against that. So I actually disagree with Kanye here. Although I do agree with the, people collaborating, working together to create even greater works or even greater accomplishments. I do agree with that.
No, I'm not supposed to say that, Biden, but that's retarded, Biden, and it's and obviously because I've been deemed with mental health, all this, I have the right to use whatever words that I like to use.
Well, that's interesting.
Ask another question.
Well, yeah, let me ask you on that. So you just said something very inflammatory about President Biden. It will, as you know, offend a lot of people. Yeah. And it will particularly offend people who work in mental health. You say you should not use a word like retarded. But you say that because you yourself have had mental health issues, that entitles you to use that kind of word as an insult. Now, I would say that's an arguable point.
I've had my issue is I've had mental health allegations.
So do you believe that you have any form of mental illness?
I believe that I suffered from exhaustion. I suffered from being lied to constantly by the people around me, And I believe those things can drive anyone to a point of maximum exhaustion. But I also believe that I'm extremely brilliant and I'm here to make the world a better place.
Yeah, again, I actually don't disagree. Again, if the person is actually a genius and they call themselves a genius, I'm not offended by such a statement because it's true. It doesn't, such things don't inflame me or make me upset. What upsets me is when people get upset at a person telling the truth. If a person calls themselves a genius and they actually are a genius, demonstrably, provably so, then there's nothing you can say about that. Anyway.
And I'm tired of the left media trying to pick on me.
Agreed.
And y'all picked on me enough, and y'all finally touched the person that's not gonna stand, that's not gonna take it anymore. And that's part of the reason why I'm on Uncensored, because what they'd like is for me to be quiet. Interesting thing about
Indeed. So this is, again, that's very masculine of Kanye to say, right? It's, I'm tired of being told, no, you can't say what I want you to say, etc. Like, no, he can, and he can say it. Like, again, the censorship of free speech is utterly ridiculous. But there's another point here, guys. And the point is this. Once you've reached a certain amount of wealth, you can say whatever you want. They can't stop you. Because even if they cancel you, you're so powerful at that point that it's irrelevant, right? And that's a powerful message. If you work to establish an empire, it doesn't matter what the other empires think of you. You still have an empire. All right, we're going to end the video there. I think we'll do another one on this. I think this interview is actually really good. Okay. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Hit the sub, hit all for notifications. If you'd like to support me further, I do have Patreon with exclusive content. Patreon.com/theheliosblog. Just go there and subscribe to any tier. Any level of support is appreciated. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time.